Man, Robert Saleh is on the hot seat up in New York, and it's all Aaron Rodgers' fault, which means it's Saleh's fault too. We'll talk about that in just a second on Locked On NFL.
The barbershop is open and Tony Wiggins has a chair for you. He's ready with some real NFL talk. The local experts of Locked On bring their expertise, and Wiggy is ready with his clippers and shears. Sit down and enjoy. The new Locked On NFL starts now. Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome to the new Locked On NFL, bringing you a double dose of the NFL's biggest stories with the help of local experts that know your favorite teams like no one else. I'm the host, the barber, Tony Wiggins, joined today by Locked On NFL expert Julian Council. And on today's show, we got a busy show for you today. We're going to talk about the Monday Night Football preview between the Chiefs and the Saints. We're going to hit that in segment number 3. Segment number 2, Lamar is King of the North. Shout out to Game of Thrones people. First segment, we're going to talk about Robert Saleh being on the hot seat and why Aaron Rodgers, Mr. Rodgers, is the one that's responsible for it, in my opinion. Body language is terrible. Get off my lawn is all over his face. We're going to make sure that we hit that for you today. We appreciate for you making us your first listen of the day and for being an everyday here on Locked On NFL, which is a part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Make sure you tune in again to Locked On NFL tomorrow morning. The madman Tyler Rowland will give you more NFL coverage. Today's episode is sponsored and brought to you by LinkedIn. That's right, LinkedIn Talent Solutions, man. It helps you find qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. You just got to post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. Terms and conditions apply. A couple of weeks ago, or maybe last week, maybe a couple of weeks ago, we talked about Aaron Rodgers. We talked about the Jets. My buddy Julian Council said it's the Jets. And now he's omniscient. Julian, it is the Jets. And Robert Saleh may be on the unemployment line soon.
I mean, I try to let y'all know that this is not a thing. The New York Jets have not been to the playoffs since 2010. And the last time they were close to going to the playoffs, Ryan Fitzpatrick was their quarterback. And now he's on Thursday Night Football. So, understand this, man. The New York Jets, I don't care who they bring in to be their quarterback, it's just not going to happen. And we're seeing already with Aaron Rodgers at 40 years old, looking like he's 40 years old, playing in the worst offense in the NFL because Nathaniel Hackett is the play caller. I don't care how much Aaron Rodgers loves him. Hackett should not be in this job. And we're seeing that it's the Jets.
Nathaniel Hackett can't hack it. And that's something Michael Irvin said a couple of years ago. I'm going to tell you, man, you are right about that. And you are right in line with my man, John Butchko. He killed 2 birds in one stone. He talked about Aaron Rodgers, but then also talked about the coaching staff. So I'm going to tell you right now, it sounds like to me that this honeymoon is a little bit past the stage of being over.
The Jets lose to the Minnesota Vikings in ugly fashion in London. And this game showed that the Jets have a problem. Believe it or not, that problem is Aaron Rodgers. Not a whole lot good you can say about that game for the Jets. We talked all last week about how important the game was, and the Jets did not play like it was an important game. It was a very sloppy performance, a performance where the Jets squandered many opportunities. Really, again, not many good things you can come away from this game. A lot of bad things, though, a lot of bad takeaways. And I think at the top of that list is the quarterback. This was a horrible game by Aaron Rodgers. I think if we're listing reasons the Jets lost, Rodgers would be at the top of any list. If he's not number one, then he's up there. This was one of the worst games of Aaron Rodgers' career. Look, I don't know how much a coaching change is going to help this team because I don't know that the Jets have a coaching staff who can hold this thing together. It's very tough to make a midseason coaching change. But, you're at the point where something's got to give. This coaching staff cannot continue. I know people want Saleh fired. And look, I'm not going to shed a tear if Saleh goes. I'm just not sure Jeff Ulbricht's the guy that's going to hold this thing together.
Look at my man, Julian. Julian, we sat here and thought, okay, this would be cool. Aaron Rodgers will be given the Tom Brady treatment. And in order to be given the Tom Brady treatment, you kind of got to be Tom Brady. You know what I'm saying? That's like on Leave It to Beaver. You're going to take Warwick Cleaver out and stick Rick James in there. That ain't going to work. That family dynamic is going to break down a little bit. And this is all about Aaron Rodgers. And poor Robert Saleh is going to get fired probably because of it.
Yeah, and honestly, he should have been fired before when they failed by drafting Zach Wilson, and he was completely unplayable for those 2 seasons, which led to them to bring in Aaron Rodgers. Rarely do you see a head coach and GM, Joe Douglas, he's going to be gone too because he is complicit in all of this. Rarely do you see these guys get a second opportunity to bring in a quarterback of even Aaron Rodgers' caliber, but they haven't had Aaron Rodgers. They had him last year for 5 plays. And you have to just be realistic. A guy is coming off of an Achilles tear at that age, and he has little experience with the receivers in that room. Looking at Garrett Wilson, he's outstanding, but everybody else, like Allen Lazard, was terrible last year, and so far this year has been a little bit better, but still not great. Mike Williams is coming off of an ACL tear. I just look at this Jets offense, and I saw them back in training camp against the Panthers, and I'm looking at that team like, that's supposed to be a Super Bowl contender? Because Rodgers looked terrible then, and he looks terrible now. And understand this too, like Jimmy Trena, who writes for The Corpse at USP Sports Illustrated, had an amazing tweet I saw yesterday. He said, what should never be forgotten is that Aaron Rodgers was 90% retired, locked himself into a dark house for a few days, and had a revelation that he wanted to play for the Jets. Aaron Rodgers went away in a dark room for 3 days and said, you know what? I want to start smoking Jets. I want to be a part of the New York Jets, and I want to go out there and embarrass myself on Sunday afternoons in London, England. Like, it's over. It's over.
Yeah, man.
It's over Salah.
I absolutely agree with you. And he got what he was asking for. And the Jets got what they were asking for. Because Peter Bukowski of Locked On Packers and everybody else told us that this is how this dude has been. He's been acting. The older he gets, what's that name of that movie? Benjamin Buttons. The older he gets, the more he acts like a petulant child. And you can see his body language on the sideline, bro. It's just almost like he doesn't get his way. He's like little Timmy in the grocery store that doesn't get to grab the bubble gum. It's almost like eyes rolling, not interacting with his teammates. Every time somebody makes a mistake, the hands go up, the look goes up, and nothing is ever his fault. And to me, that's a problem.
Go back to last week when they had the 5 false start penalties because he's trying to do the hard count, which he's become synonymous with and has oftentimes gotten free plays out of it. Robert Saleh was asked about it. He's like, maybe we should try to slow down and just have a normal cadence. And Aaron Rodgers is like, or we could hold guys accountable. Also, that's an anomaly. We have 1 false start like the first 3 weeks. Why change things up? And you just see that kind of attitude towards the coaching staff where he clearly does not respect him. And he clearly doesn't like what he has around him. It's just, that's just not the right guy to have in this situation, man. To put Aaron Rodgers, his attitude in New York with the Jets and things be going like they're going so far, they got a problem.
But then we're going to look up now. We're going to look up and he's going to be smiling all over the internet when he goes on a podcast. He's going to be smiling when he's talking to McAfee and he's just going to be happy. It's like, nothing is on him, nothing screams lack of leadership than you actually putting more energy and time into something that doesn't have to do with football, especially if you are a quarterback. Robert Saleh is going to get run out of town. Joe Douglas is going to get run out of town. And this is the ultimate example of be careful what you wish for, because you are not getting the Aaron Rodgers that made himself a Hall of Famer. You are getting Aaron Rodgers that I don't know what he's doing, but whatever he's doing is going to cost some people in New York their jobs. I tell you what, I know a quarterback that's doing something. That's my man, Lamar Jackson. He is absolutely tearing it up. And in a battle of the 2 best quarterbacks in the NFC or the AFC North, he came out on top, and he's the king of the North right now. But one of those quarterbacks is taking a little bit of heat, too, from national folks all over the place saying he's not doing enough, and I absolutely don't understand that. So we'll get to that in segment number 2 here today on Locked On NFL. Today's show is sponsored and brought to you by LinkedIn. That's right, LinkedIn Talent Solutions. When you're hiring for a small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help you find the right professionals. And I know when you're building a business, because I've done it, you know, you're dealing with contractors, you're trying to get everything right, you're dealing with regulations, and you forget that you actually have to hire people. Well, LinkedIn isn't just a job board. It helps you hire professionals you can't find anywhere else, even those who aren't actively searching for a new job, but might be open to the perfect role. LinkedIn knows that small businesses are wearing so many hats, and might not have the time or resources to hire. Here's what you need to do is post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnfl to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Today's show is also sponsored and brought to you by BetterHelp. If you have ever been in a situation where you even considered therapy, well, I think BetterHelp can help you, because I have had therapy on multiple occasions, and each time it has helped me get through. And now I do it on a continuous basis because, well, I don't have to fall off to get back on and wait to do therapy until it's time to get up. I can keep myself balanced and square every single day, constantly dealing with death and loss of friends and family, body aches, and trying to make sure that I can spend time with my grandchildren. Sometimes what happens is you stress yourself out. Well, guess what? BetterHelp can be there for you. If you're considering therapy or thinking about starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. Overcome your fears with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/lockedon to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. All right, segment number 2. Julian Council is on fire here on Locked On NFL. He's calling it like he sees it. That's what he always does here on a Monday morning and a Monday afternoon. Now, listen, there was a battle yesterday. This is a game that I was almost afraid to even look at between Lamar Jackson and Joe Burrow. It's because I don't have really, I don't have an egg in that basket, but it's like two guys that I want to see do well, right? Well, Lamar Jackson right now, if you ask me, Julian Council is probably leading in the MVP voting because he was absolutely on fire again yesterday.
Yeah, he was outstanding. And I'm curious because I know a lot of people were talking about Sam Darnold as the MVP, and he looked a lot like Sam Darnold on Sunday in that game, which makes it even more embarrassing for the Jets to lose after those 3 Aaron Rodgers picks. Man, Lamar's outstanding. And this is back-to-back weeks now where he is out-dueled. And it wasn't even a duel the week before with Josh Allen and the Bills, but he's out-dueled 2 guys who media members try to constantly prop over Lamar Jackson, even though Lamar is a 2-time MVP. And capital L, love Joe Burrow, but man, Lamar got it done yesterday. And well, the Bengals defense also, they let down their quarterback yet again.
Yeah, they absolutely did. Let's hear from a man, KO, Kevin Oestreicher, about the Ravens' victory. And then we're going to come back and talk a little bit more about Lamar and Joe Burrow.
The Baltimore Ravens win the game of the year against the Cincinnati Bengals in Week 5. I'm Kevin Oestreicher, the host of Locked On Ravens. It was an unreal comeback for this Baltimore Ravens team. They win 41-38 in overtime. Lamar Jackson put the Superman cape on and willed this team to a win, 26-42 through the air, 348 passing yards and 4 passing touchdowns. Rough go of it for the defense on that side of the ball, but Marlon Humphrey had a clutch interception late in regulation that then set up a Justin Tucker 56-yard field goal, which he was able to bang through the uprights. Baltimore moves to 3-2. Cincinnati falls to 1-4. Up next for the Ravens is a Week 6 tilt with the Washington Commanders. Lamar Jackson versus Jaden Daniels up next. So for more on the Ravens and the Week 5 win against the Bengals, be sure to check out the Locked On Ravens podcast and subscribe on YouTube, part of Locked On Podcast Network.
First, the obvious. Lamar, it seems like every single week he's going against either an established quarterback or some hotshot dude every time out, and he just keeps standing tall and delivering.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Week 1 against Kansas City on the road in that Thursday night game where they were just, a pinky toe from Isaiah Likely from sending that thing potentially to overtime, or I don't know, maybe John Harbaugh would have gone for 2. He was great in that game. Was great against, really it's the Derrick Henry show against Buffalo, but still, he was great in that game, that dynamic duo. I know we talked about that a week ago, and then yesterday, that one touchdown where I don't know how he gets out of that. And it's things that we see constantly from guys like Lamar, from Joe Burrow, even saw a little bit from Caleb Williams, who I know we're going to talk about later on yesterday against the Panthers. We've seen it from Josh Allen, just dudes who do, and of course, Mahomes, let me not forget about him. We see these guys just get out of these Houdini acts all the time, and probably an ill-advised throw, but who cares? Because it scored a touchdown, and it was remarkable to watch all day long what this dude was able to do. And I just want people to sit back here and honestly marvel at Lamar, marvel at Mahomes, marvel at Josh Allen, Joe Burrow. Like, these AFC quarterbacks are outstanding. And I know we had the era of Manning and of Drew Brees and Tom Brady, Phillip Rivers, you want to throw him in there as well. But these guys were never as athletic and as outstanding in terms of some of the things they can do just with their arms just escaping that we have now. And I just want everybody to sit there and just admire it, even though I know there's going to be a lot of people who want to do the Lamar versus Joe, Lamar versus Josh and all of that. But, man, Lamar was outstanding yesterday, and so was Joe Burrow.
He was. And the only thing Joe Burrow couldn't do was be a placeholder on a field goal and play defense. And it's gotten to the point now where he can't make one mistake. I asked you to look up. Last week doesn't count because they beat the Carolina Panthers, so everybody was quiet, right?
Sure.
The last two losses, yesterday and the one a couple of weeks ago, will you please regurgitate those stats for me? And because they got blamed for it 2 weeks ago by, I think it was Shannon Sharp and Chris Canty, said he didn't do enough. And then now there are people saying he didn't do enough. I want you to read.
Yeah, so looking at the game on Monday night against Washington a couple weeks ago, 38-33 loss. Understand that no team punted in that game. 29-38, 324 yards, 3 touchdowns. Look at Sunday in that 41-38 OT loss where, again, let's not forget the head coach, Zach Taylor, would not allow Joe Burrow to throw the ball after having an outstanding day and decided to kick a 53-yard field goal. I understand that those have become fairly routine nowadays. It's still 53 yards. Do we need to actually settle for that, or do you want to get a little bit closer? Possibly. But yesterday, he was 30 of 39, 392 yards, 5 touchdowns. Yes, the 1 interception to Marlon Humphrey. Apparently, that was the difference in the game. That in Cincinnati not letting Joe Burrow try to help them win the game in overtime, and the missed kick, and Derrick Henry still like, how does he keep getting away with this? How is he that big, that fast, and 30 years old? Like, how does it happen? I just
it's a Florida thing, man. Derrick Henry's my wife's cousin, and he grew up about 15 miles away from where I'm sitting right now. It's a Florida thing, man. It must be in the water or something. I tell you. Now, we've given a lot of attention to the incumbent great quarterbacks in the league. Jaden Daniels and Caleb Williams will be tied at the hip forever. And Caleb started out struggling, and Jaden Daniels, rightfully so, has been given all of this credit. We're going to constantly do Caleb Jaden watch here on the barbershop just because we petty like that. And I'll tell you what, who's starting to play a little bit better. That's Caleb Williams. And here's Lauren Cox from Locked On Bears to tell you why.
Caleb Williams keeps getting better, and this Chicago Bears offense finally showed its full potential in a dominating win over the Carolina Panthers. I'm Lauren Cox, host of the Locked On Bears podcast, and Caleb Williams finally showed the complete package, dropping in the deep balls that had been just out of reach in earlier games this season. He saw the field well, he looked off safeties, and the offensive line did a good job of giving him time to throw so that these plays could develop downfield. Finally, things were open for this Bears offense vertically the way they had been horizontally all year long. And of course, they can rely on their defense every step of the way for a team-wide dominating performance. For more analysis of the Chicago Bears' victory over the Carolina Panthers, check out the Locked On Bears podcast on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts.
I think Caleb Williams is starting to settle in and realizing he doesn't have to be Superman like all day. Even Superman was Clark Kent most of the time, right? He only became Superman when he needed to. And it seems like the young man is settling down a little bit. And now he's inching back up towards being considered the dude of the future in the National Football League.
Yeah, I mean, this is obviously the game that I was watching most intently yesterday with the Panthers. And yeah, I mean, he was great. He looked like the vintage Caleb Williams that we saw the past 2 years at USC, where he could just run around back there, make things happen, extend the play. And then, I mean, DJ Moore wide open as the Panthers secondary is not able to communicate. Another throw where Caleb just looks off the safety, throws it over the top to DJ Moore. I thought he was great. And I do love, like I talked to Lauren about this last week, and he was saying how he felt like the Bears offense was starting to figure things out after they got that win against the Rams, the first time where Caleb Williams had an over 100 passer rating, had a 137 yesterday against Carolina. And he said too about the offensive line in that short, how they played well and gave him time. Like, they didn't have to do anything. The Panthers don't have a pass rush. Like, Jadeveon Clowney got hurt in that game, and he offers really nothing pass rush wise anyways, and never has been the kind of edge rusher we thought he was going to be. He's been largely a disappointment. It's still good he's in the league, but he has not been that guy. He got hurt. And after that, it was guys named DJ Johnson, Charles Harris, who you've heard of, Teron Jackson, and Thomas Incoom. Have you ever heard of DJ Johnson, Teron Jackson, and Thomas Incoom? No. It's a veritable who's who of whom that the Panthers are throwing out there as their edge rushers week in and week out. So, yes, credit to Caleb Williams because he looked great, and especially a game where there are plenty of signs. Thank you, the Panthers, for their trade up to the Bears so they could get Bryce Young, who that has not worked out. And the Bears have gotten 5 players who made an impact in that game and helped them win. And one of them, primarily, of course, is Caleb Williams, who is starting to figure it out. Even though I was trolling Bears fans, I was being petty last week, I still feel like Jaden Daniels has been better. So maybe y'all did get it wrong. I don't know.
Yeah. So this is where I kind of defend the Bears fans a little bit. Who did Caleb throw 2 touchdowns to yesterday?
DJ Moore.
Oh, and who was standing there on the sideline watching?
Hey, hold on. Bryce Young did play in the final drive of the game.
Oh, he played the final. Okay.
To protect Andy Dalton, mind you. So not to help develop Bryce Young, but to protect the soon-to-be 37-year-old quarterback.
All right, man. I'm gonna stop trolling, man. I'm gonna get off of it a little bit. I know it was hard watching that dude catch those touchdown passes yesterday,
it is. I didn't make those decisions. That's all.
Yeah, and the other 4 dudes too out there running around. Probably, they probably running down the sideline going nah. But that's just what it is, man. It's all a part of it. All right, we're gonna do a Monday night preview. We got Chiefs and the Saints. I'll tell you why I think tackling is going to be one of the most important things in this game. We'll discuss that in just a second here on Locked On NFL. Got to let you know about FanDuel, man. It is the absolute truth. FanDuel is America's #1 sports book for a reason. It's because they're America's #1 sports book. That's right. And you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. Here's what you got to do. All you got to do, man, is go and get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's right. You ain't got to win. All you got to do is make the first $5 bet, and you'll get $200 in bonus bets on FanDuel. And when you make your bets, sometimes you're on your phone and you got to leave the screen to go and check on the stats for other games and leave your bets screen. You don't have to do that on FanDuel, man. FanDuel, right in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and also do so much more on the same page where you make your bet. So make sure you go by America's #1 sports book. That is FanDuel.com. All right, third and final segment here on Locked On NFL, where it's your team every day. We always thank you for making us your first listen. Interesting game tonight. I always like games in certain venues. I like watching games in Arrowhead because the crowd is off the chain. I like watching games in New Orleans when they're playing in Arrowhead. When you get New Orleans and the Chiefs together, 2 teams that I believe tackle well defensively. The Chiefs are a little bit wounded in their respective wide receiver spots and even at running back. Yeah. I think the Saints have a chance in this game, Julian.
Am I crazy to say that the Saints have clearly the better offense heading into tonight?
Heading into the night, I would agree with that. With Alvin Kamara, yep. I think so.
I mean, it's not just him. It's Chris Olave who has stepped into that #1 wide receiver role now, and Michael Thomas is gone and really was stepped into that role a year ago with Michael Thomas's injuries. And Rashid Shaheed's been great. Alvin Kamara has been great running the ball and in the backfield. And one of the stats I love to look at when looking at just how quarterbacks are playing is passing success rate. Derek Carr, 9th in the league. Patrick Mahomes, now, yes, Mahomes is better, but he has not played better than Derek Carr, I think, to the first 4 games of the season. Even though Kansas City's 4-0, I look at New Orleans, what they did to, yes, a bad Panthers team, but did to the Cowboys. Not great defenses, but the way they were put up offensive points so far this season, I think clearly they're the better offense heading into the night.
Yeah, you remember that was a knockdown, drag-out game that they had with Atlanta, and then you saw Atlanta go and explode on national TV. It makes you think the defenses are really good, and the Chiefs are 4-0 because of their defense. I'm going to hear from Ross Jackson, and then in a little bit, we're going to hear from the guys at Locked On Chiefs. Ross is in the parking lot somewhere, man. I don't know where he was, but you watched this clip, and I was going to ask him, man, you all right? Where were you at? But then he told us. Check this out.
Explosive plays may make the difference in this New Orleans Saints Kansas City Chiefs Monday night matchup. I'm Ross Jackson, host of the Locked On Saints podcast here at Arrowhead Stadium, where the New Orleans Saints and Kansas City Chiefs will kick off later on today. The Saints and the Chiefs, this game may completely come down to explosive plays. Kansas City only has 16 so far generated throughout the season. That's bottom 3 in the NFL. The New Orleans Saints sit with around 25, 26 of those explosive plays, and they're probably going to need them, especially through the air. The Kansas City Chiefs have been fantastic against the run so far this season, which has been the bread and butter of the New Orleans Saints offense. So look for them to try to get their passing game going. Kansas City tends to leave the middle of the field open, playing a lot of cover 2 and cover 4 formations or rather concepts in their backfield, their defensive backfield. So watch for that to see if the New Orleans Saints are going to be able to take advantage of deep shots over the middle of the field. If they can, then all of a sudden this game becomes quickly interesting.
Ross in New Orleans, he ain't scared to go nowhere and stand out there outside late at night, is he, man? I'm telling you.
Apparently not. And he said later today, something like, did you get up at like 5 a.m. and drive out to Arrowhead Stadium? That's I don't know where he's staying. Maybe he's by the stadium. That's dedication right there from Ross. And I think this is going to be the biggest tests of the Clint Kubiak era early on here in New Orleans, as again, that offense has been outstanding to start out the season, but you can kind of explain away some of those results based off the Panthers defense can't stop anybody. Cowboys defense did get some stops last night against the Steelers, but still they haven't really been that great. Atlanta, they've given up some points too. And Philadelphia, I think, has got a solid defense. Still plenty of questions about the Eagles. And I'm curious to see, because I think we're all waiting to see, is Derek Carr really going to keep going the way he's going so far? Or is this going to be one of those games where he puts up a stinker against a Steve Spagnuolo defense, which it's been interesting watching how Kansas City early on in Spagnuolo's tenure with early Mahomes as well, it was all the offense. Defensively, they were just holding on. And now the last 2 years, they obviously did enough offensively to win a Super Bowl last year and so far to be 4-0, right. But it's really been that defense that's carried them. It's been interesting just kind of see how things have changed around, even though they wanted to make some acquisitions this offseason that they hoped would help the offense get back to what it was. But then you see the injuries to Hollywood Brown, who's maybe not going to play at all this season. Of course, then they lose Rashee Rice, and then they also lose their running back, Isaiah Pacheco. So very curious to see how that works out with that matchup between those two coordinators, Clint Kubiak for the Saints and Steve Spagnuolo for the Chiefs.
Of course, Belichick is the GOAT, right?
Yeah.
But there are a couple of Chiefs players or coaches that are knocking on that door. Spagnuolo has won a bunch of Super Bowls. And he's had to constantly, L'Jarius Sneed makes the great play last year to knock down a ball, right? And then he leaves in free agency. They haven't missed him one bit, at least not in the win column in the way that they perform. And Chris Jones is knocking on that door of the GOAT defensive lineman also. It's like, I love watching them play defense. The guys from Locked On Chiefs even had a talk about how they're going to play defense and how the defense has held them up all season.
Yeah, and I think the big thing when you look at this is Spags knows Derek Carr. He's played against him a ton. I talked a lot about this in the crossover episode I did with Ross Jackson last week. The reality is if you pressure Carr, he is not going to play well. And you have to pressure him, though, without blitzing him. He's very good against the blitz this year. He's got a 70% completion percentage against the blitz. But if you can get pressure on him without blitzing, his completion percentage goes down to 46%. That is a huge disparity. And he's throwing around 70% to begin with most of the time, or 80% when he's kept clean. So you definitely need to find a way to get pressure on him, but you have to do it without blitzing. And I think that's going to be a huge key in this game. And you're right. Chiefs have guys that on their depth chart that can step in, that know the offense. Saints do a little bit too. But the question is who's going to step up and take advantage. And that's what we're going to find out on Monday night.
Without great wide receiver help, I just sit here and I think about Tyrann Mathieu on that side of the ball, the former Chief playing the chess match with Patrick Mahomes. I think this is going to come down to tackling and who can force the other team to make the big mistake at the critical time.
Yeah, I mean, what Chris says there, too, about Derek Carr and having to get pressure on him, honestly, it's football 101. Like, it's as simple as that, folks. If you can get pressure at 4, you don't have to send a blitz. You're going to win more often than not and really cause problems. And we'll see if they're able to do that, because I am curious, because that's a good point, too, about Spagnuolo and the fact that they faced when Derek Carr was the Raiders all those years. And it's not like Las Vegas or before that, Oakland had a lot of success against this Kansas City Chiefs defense, even before they became one of the top units in the NFL like they have been so far this season and dating back to last year. This is an interesting Monday night game for sure. And I'm very curious to see how New Orleans is able to hang in there, because they're sitting in a division that's going to be competitive at the top with Tampa Bay, who just had that heartbreaker on Thursday night, and Atlanta, who just keeps pulling them out of the rear end the last 2 weeks, find a way to win those games. This is going to be one that New Orleans really needs, and I think one where they can kind of announce themselves to the league, and maybe we'll start seeing how those issues with all the injuries on offense are not going to be ones that the Chiefs are going to be able to get over this pat like they did last season.
It's going to be a very interesting game, and you're going to be able to find out exactly what happened early in the morning tomorrow by tuning in to Locked On NFL and Tyler Rowland, the Madman. He'll have all of the reviews and reviews and replays and highlights of that game, I'm sure, early in the morning, because it's a double dose of Locked On NFL now in our new shows. Tyler Rowland, the Madman, in the morning, and then I'll come in just like I am now at the barbershop. Tomorrow it'll be with Kevin Ostreicher. We'll talk about that. Make sure you check in every single day wherever you hear or listen to your podcast, or go to our YouTube page that is Locked On NFL to check it out. Julian Council, as always, man, brilliant, my brother. And we will see you again next Monday. And all of y'all, we will see y'all again here tomorrow on the barbershop on Locked On NFL. Make sure you take care of each other. We'll do the same.